I've got a very great topic today, and this is the elusive, often misunderstood, widely rumored, no data driven topic about the North Bali airport. How many times have you gone on social media or on YouTube or heard it in dinner conversation? Bali's going to build another airport up in the north. Stick around today. Watch till the end and find out the secrets about how you can really determine whether or not an infrastructure project like this is going to happen and how your short-term rentals are going to be effective as well. Stay tuned and learn only insights that you'll find here on the Bali Business Review. I'm Jing, and I've been living in Bali for almost 20 years. And during this time, I've heard every single type of infrastructure project that you can possibly imagine. I've heard about the extension of the Sunset Road. I've heard about the proposed subway network all throughout Bali. And I have certainly heard for more times than I would like to remember about the North Bali airport. But what's the truth? What's something that, let's say, a 20-year resident would understand? Having worked at Airbnb, having ran my own business for 12 years, that a casual person on the internet would probably not understand. Well, let's not listen to me. Let's actually go to this fellow right here. This is Basuri Tjahaja Purnama. And so what makes Basuki an interesting fellow? I happened to meet Basuki about 2023. We were both attending this conference that was hosted in Nusa Dua. And the funny thing was, at the conference, what I learned is Basuri spoke very plainly, very frankly, about what are the preceding logic and steps before an airport can be built. Something that I generally never hear about in most conversations on social media or most conversations in Bali. So he got to the point. He basically was listening to everybody speak about their particular dreams of doing this and doing that. And he just got to the point, he said, all right, before there's going to be an actual airport built in North Bali, we need to have customers. And these customers are going to be, you guessed it, they're going to be airlines. Airlines are the occupants, are the tenants of an airport. They need to buy the route from their hub cities to North Bali in order for there to be enough funding in order to build an airport. I bet you didn't know that, right? If there is going to really be an airport, what you would see is an open tender auction and a bidding process for buying the routes before the airport is going to be built. Until you see that, there's probably not going to be an airport. Surprise, surprise. So the mechanics of actually building the North Bali airport, you just need to understand it a little bit more in depth. So let's go back into the history. Let's in fact use, let's say, a little bit of ChatGPT over here, and we can okay? Come in and see that this particular ambition of building a new North Bali airport started in 2015. It started with the Bali governor, I Made Mangkupastika, and he was actually a letter of recommendation to build a North Bali airport. But then the problem at that point was that there was too much traffic coming into the southern airport, and so it necessitated the construction of a northern airport. Then later on, there was a subsequent discussion where the coordinating minister of maritime affairs, Luhut, then confirmed to the central government to actually create this offshore airport in the north of Bali. However, what happened later, just 4 years later, was that the president of Indonesia, Jokowi, decided that he would actually remove this project because they were going to focus on building 9 more Balis throughout Indonesia. So why build another Bali in Bali? I remember being in those discussions where the ambition at the time was to disperse the tourism trade that was focused solely in Bali more equitably across the remaining islands of Indonesia. So they were going to build in Lake Toba and Sumatra. They were going to ramp up the Yogyakarta and the Borobudur entry point in Labuan Bajo and a few other locations all throughout Indonesia to make the tourism trade more equitable. Now, State-owned enterprise minister Erick Thohir plans to announce a new airport by 2027 because he anticipates the capacity of the airport will be reaching its critical limit, that is the current airport, the Ngurah Rai International Airport, by 2029. Who is Erick Thohir? All right, let's find out who this fellow is, okay? So we go on the Jakarta Post. We can see that, okay, here's a document from a very reputable news source. Jakarta Post is like the New York Times of Indonesia. And they report that Erick Thohir expects Bali to build a new airport in 2027. But let's go on Wikipedia and find out who Erick Thohir is. Erick Thohir is probably a billionaire because he owns a basketball team here in the United States. Erick Thohir was born on May 30th in 1970, and he's a co-owner of Astra. If you don't know what Astra is, it is a unique monopoly of both, I think, Toyota and Honda in Indonesia, which happen to be combined under the same distributor, and so they sell probably the majority of passenger cars across Indonesia. All right, so this gentleman here owns several media companies. Let's see, he has Kompas, which is a major newspaper, Jawa Post, he has Jak TV, he's got quite a lot of TV stations and radio stations, and you can probably guess that news of a second airport can't hurt a news business. Maybe that's why we're hearing so many reports about this particular secondary airport. It's good for business. All right, so Erick Thohir is now leading this particular initiative to draw plans for a new airport. But let's study the practicality. Let's pretend we're an airline. Ask ourselves, as an airline, let's say Scoot, AirAsia, Singapore Airlines, United Airlines, would it actually make sense to build a new airport and bring passengers to North Bali? For that, we can probably consult with the trusty 3D map by Bukit Vista. So this is one of our proprietary products here that we use exclusively at the Bali Business Review to inform and help educate our guests. So what is this? So this is a map showing the rental activities of Airbnbs all throughout the island of Bali and Lombok too now. So what you can see here is, you can see on my screen, this is the current position of the current airport. And you can see surrounding this airport, within just about an hour radius of this airport, there are, plus 20,000 rental options, plus probably an equivalent number of hotels available for rent. You have the world famous beach clubs, you have the world famous Uluwatu Temple, you have the Seminyak nightlife, you have Kuta, you have Canggu, you have all these things within this particular radius. You have tons of options. Therefore, you have tons of passengers who are probably going to travel specifically to visit these regions, and with a slight commute upwards, about 2 or 3 hours, they will visit Ubud too as well. You see the density of essentially the proven amount of market here in the southern region. Let's go north and see what we see. As we go up north, the proposed site of the new airport, which I will double check, let's see what was the site. The site was called, let's see, it's going to be, okay, there it is called. It's called Tambahan, the proposed site for the northern airport. And when we look in the Kubu Tambahan area on our spatial map, well, surprise, surprise, we find probably a few stragglers here. And so look at the density here. It's tiny. It's almost insignificant compared to the massive amount of density down here in the south. Okay, so if I'm an airline, would I risk buying a very expensive route to a airport which essentially doesn't have a proven market for visitors? That probably isn't my strongest move. So let's go even deeper. Let's go even deeper using our AI skills. What can we find? What we find is this. What the clever engineers here at Bukit Vista have been able to do is that they've been able to scrape the Flight Aware website. This Flight Aware website is posting data about how many flights are arriving and leaving in Bali every day. So what they've been able to do is to compile the day-to-day progress of all the flights coming and leaving from Bali over the past 3 years. This is the insight that they've been able to figure out, and I'm presenting this for the very first time on Bali Business Review to hopefully your delight, and so you can see the facts of what's actually happening, right? I love this stuff. It's just so amazing. So when you have data, you have essentially expertise. So I want you to see this graph, okay? So what you're seeing this is the first 3 months of activity from 2024, 2023, and this year, 2025, okay? So the line represented in red, the 2024 graph, the line represented in blue is 2023, and line in green is 2025. Red is 2024, green is 2025, and blue is 2023. At the beginning of the year, in January, you can see that 2025 arrivals were above 2024 and far above 2023. At the beginning of the year, there was 427 arrivals this year, 2025, and 7 more than the corresponding time last year, but close to almost 64 more than 2023. So a significant bump up, right? And if that were to continue, you would expect that, okay, maybe we do need to up in the north. However, you can see that particular trend did not keep up. Now we are getting to March. About March 8th, numbers for inbound 2025 was only 310. And what was it in 2023? You can see it was 348, and in 2024, 355. So there were 45 fewer flights coming to Bali this March than at peak last year, but it's even lower than 2 years ago. What does that tell you? What that should tell you is that actually there is no capacity problem with the current airport. And why would that be surprising? Why would there be any relevance at all? Let's go back to the original document. So if we go back to the original official document, this was released in 2018. This was the original plan given by the Minister of Transportation at the time for the formation of the second airport. Okay. Now, if you're not a great reader of Indonesia like myself, okay, then you can probably admire the photo here. What we can simply do is we can just go over to use Google Translate and we can translate article to English, okay? So the article, it says that the Minister of Transportation, Budi Karya Sumadi, said that the airport in North Bali, which is planned to be built in Kubu, Tambahan district, is projected to serve low-cost carriers. I bet nobody talked about that, right? We all thought that this was going to be Singapore Airlines, United, Emirates. No, it's actually a low-cost carrier hub. So the plan is carried out to synergize with the existing airport, namely Igusti Ngurah Rai, with the aim of increasing the number of tourists who will come to Bali. So that was the original plan, to build a low-cost carrier terminal. But the original intention of actually getting the airport built was to, once again, add extra capacity to the airport in South Bali. There's no problem with that anymore, it seems like, with the market turbulence and fewer passengers coming. So there is no expansion because there's fewer arriving. So I guess there's not that much demand to actually build a second airport now, is there? Okay, so we've taken a look at a few angles on this. We know who the, let's say, person running story about second airport. He probably gains some benefit from the extra media attention through all his different media outlets. They got to report on news, right? And then the particular plans on actually building the airport have not come into any fruition. We haven't seen the routes purchased. We haven't seen an official architect be appointed to design the airport. In fact, there hasn't even been a tender or land broken on the site yet. So then we take a look at the market dynamics and we reveal to ourselves that this is just not a very competitive market in the north compared to the south. It just doesn't make a lot of sense for an airline to go through and make this pioneering risk and participate in building an airport, which I'm sorry to say, it doesn't have any proven actual visitors there. If you've been to the north of Bali, then you will probably know that this is a fairly dry area. In fact, one of the major industries over here in Singaraja is to send young people to work in the cruise line industry. Why do they do that? Because agriculture isn't working very well. It's super dry. And tourism, of course, isn't working very well. It's essentially isolated from the rest of Bali because of the mountain range in between it and the south part of Bali. And a little bit of visiting and dolphin tours. There's not that many true activities up here in the north. It's a very hard sell. All right, so based on our analysis here at the Bali Business Review, we wouldn't be recommending to take a deeper look into the deal. If you're looking to invest or maybe get a benefit on an early investment into this, well, be prepared to wait quite a while. It might take some time for the airport to actually function. But let's go a little bit deeper. This goes into, I think, a longer time trend that we've seen here consistently that happens time after time again in Bali, that oftentimes infrastructure projects that are announced, they never get built. And the true infrastructure projects that don't get announced get built. You might wonder, what's the reasoning behind that? So here's the key. Infrastructure projects that are announced that actually deliver are terrible business opportunities for people in the know. You're telling everybody that something is about to be built, so then you cannot enter the market at a lower price. But if you're really going to build it, you want to keep yourself quiet. And the reason you want to keep yourself quiet is because you anticipate that after the infrastructure has been built, then prices of land will go up and the opportunity will essentially escape you if you had already announced it. So be sure to see in Indonesia, major infrastructure projects are often dealt with very quietly if they're going to really happen. And then by the time everyone finds out, well, it's too late to invest in the market. All right. This is a valuable insight for those of you watching this channel, completely new and different perspective than all the hype and all the nonsense that you've probably been hearing on social media. And that's why you should watch until the very end. So once again, this is Jing signing off from the Bali Business Review with another episode of Market Insights. If you want to learn more in-depth information from savvy expert professionals and be able to independently verify using strong AI tools such as ChatGPT, such as FlightAware, come on this show and continue to watch our next episodes. Once again, this is an open discussion. There could be, evidence proving that there is going to be a bill tomorrow, but if you find out that's going to happen, please comment, engage with me in the comments below. All right, Jing again for Market Insights. Hope to see you in the next episode here at the Bali Business Review.